Gordon, send Morehouse to save the house. Come on, the house!
I've been under pressure today. Anyway, hello everybody and welcome to the Housecast. Because we're recording, I don't want any inappropriate language or comments. Thanks everyone for listening. I'm not sure how we're going to manage tonight because our main man is not here. There's a few rumours of where he is or where he might be. I've got my own thoughts, but Joe Martin is not appearing. I think it's the first time he's missed it, Dooch. Can you remember him missing one?
I can't ever remember. No, his consecutive Housecast appearances rival his consecutive games for the first team, I think.
Yeah, they do. And his performances are probably as equal, but we'll see if we manage. I'm led to believe it's recording. It's taken me 20 minutes to get in, but let's see how we go. Again, Dooch, I'll just ask you, is this the most consecutive weeks we've done? I know we keep podding when we're winning, but...
No, we missed last week.
Oh, yeah, we did, didn't we? Yeah, on with Jollies. Yeah, so it doesn't work for it, does it? And we did win last week as well, so... But we've got to keep going whilst there's so much to talk about, Dooch. I think you agree that...
lots of cricket, Jez, yeah, loads of cricket.
Lots of cricket and lots of great cricket. Entertaining. It is better when we're winning, and the spectators love it. They love us being on and love the episodes being released. We've got two great guests on tonight who I'll introduce in a minute. But before we go to that, I'll introduce the hosts. So as everyone can hear, Dooch is on, looking great, wandering around the pitch on Sunday, looking cool as a cucumber again. And we've got Gary on. How you doing, Gaz?
I'm good, Jess, thanks.
Yeah, everything all right?
Yeah, all good here. Good to see you all.
Yeah, and you're as happy as Larry with the way the house are going. The messages keep rolling. It's good fun.
Oh, yeah, it is. It's trying to fit everything in, isn't it?
I know it is. Yeah, there's that much to do and that much to try and watch. It made me laugh on that WhatsApp chat that we had where you were getting bollocked for keep sneaking the stream on. It's great because there's no sound. Wife don't even know it's on sometimes.
Yeah, well, that's it. I was just like reckoning our admiring view, but and obviously I had to get the superstitious thing in about not moving chairs. You see, so what can you do? What can you do?
Yeah, we've all got that. We've all got it. Our other co-host, Gav. Good that you can come on, Gav. I know Mondays. You like the Mondays. How you doing?
Yeah, all right, mate. Yeah, all good. Thank you. You?
Yeah, all good. Yeah. Entertained yesterday. It was great to get down there. I wasn't there Friday or Saturday. Did you get down to any of the games, Gav? Live?
Yeah, I went down Friday, and went down to the club Saturday for a couple of hours. Watched the twos, and followed yesterday on play cricket. Brilliant.
So I'm going to go into the guests before we start talking about the cricket and just see how they're doing. The format's going to be just all cricket tonight. We've got the results from the seconds. There's been the Worsley Cup draw that we'll talk through, but there's nothing else, no draws or anything else on. So we'll come on to an amateur who's, he's absolutely on fire. He's doing a great job for us. He comes on the podcast quite often and it's always good fun. And we have some good crack and mileage with him. Jonny Whitehead, how you doing, Johnny?
Very good. Thank you, gents. Great to see you all tonight.
Good lad. Are you? How's it going? We were chatting at weekend, a few of the spectators around the players and the amount you're playing, and and I know you don't do a great deal of bowling, but it's mentally an issue. All the games and how's it go? How are you finding it? The amount of games?
Tough. Yeah, it's tough. It's a challenge because obviously there has been a lot of volume playing, a lot of travelling as well, and not exactly been around the corner. I guess it's more air time with the lads.
Yeah.
But yeah, it takes its toll. It does take its toll. I think, Fridays have been the same problem for a few years, where you sort of, you know, some aren't even managing to finish work properly and having to get to a game rather than finishing work and getting to a game, because it's, you know, you're just going straight there. So that's always been a challenge. And then obviously with the Lancs Cup, we've had both Penrith and Netherfield, which are close to 1.5, 2 hours away. So it's despite the early finish, but yeah, a lot of cricket, but a lot of wins as well. So it's always good. It works hand in hand.
Yeah, it keeps you going, I suppose. The wins keep you going, and you see the side is always, you know, a good strength, and people want to play. You know, I think we talked with yourself and I think Ben a couple of years ago about, you know, a bit of a rotation system just to rest players and get people out. And I'm sure the other guests will have comments around this, certainly for amateurs. But once you're winning, you don't, and as a batter as well, you don't want to miss a game. You don't want to, you know, not be allowed. Do you discuss rotation? Do you discuss resting players?
South is probably more in the know, you know, on that subject than me. But to chuck my 2 pence in, I would say probably not, no, because there's also that other conversation we have to have where we sort of say, you know, we try and ask, and Ben actually had this conversation with us a few weeks ago, towards the start of the season, where he was asking us, you know, as a team, can we just make sure that we are as available as, you know, as much as we can, because it's so important. Not necessarily for making people like Joe Reducci's, Ben's lives easier, but more because, you know, I think it's in line with what we're trying to do as a unit, consistency. I think it's important because when you've got people like the young lads, like Charlie Ganser and Henry, who are stepping up this year in terms of their responsibilities and their roles that they play in the team, you know, up in that order. You know, first change with the ball in some games. You know, they've got to find their rhythm, and I don't think it would work to have people like your Francois, etc., coming in playing games just because we're resting other people, you know, the lads, and then having them come back in to then play that role. You know, I think we're trying to give them as much game time as possible to make sure they find their feet, but also develop as we want them to in first team cricket.
Yeah, and it is, when you talk about it like that, it is a thin line. You know, you've got those young kids who are pushing, and you know, you've got to look at the runs that Will Norcross is getting, and also, you know, Frankie's back playing a little bit. The squad is getting bigger and bigger, which adds pressure on. But it is good to, certainly for the young lads, to have that mental pressure as well and see how they cope with it. And I'm sure between you all, you're such a tight knit group that you would manage it should there be a problem. So we'll come back to you, Jonny, and as we talk through the games. But we'll go on to our second guest. It's professional Dan Salpietro. How are you doing, Dan?
I'm good, thanks, Jez. It's been a little bit of time. It's lovely to be here and see all your faces on screen again.
Yeah, it's brilliant. I mean, we still talk about the podcast you came on when you first were proing for us, and how insightful it was, and your thoughts around the game. And obviously that's not going to change as you're getting older. How are you? What's your thoughts around the amount of cricket that's been played? I know you've had your injuries, so you're desperate to get back and play a lot, and we'll come on to that. But for the amateurs, how do you find that?
Yeah, I was just about to say, Jez, it's actually quite nice. I think I'm playing 1 and missing 5 or something like that. So it's actually quite, I could get used to this. I reckon I've got another 15 years in me. Yeah, that's been frustrating. It's actually, if you look at my back, it's probably, it was the first proing game that I've missed over a decade of proing, and then it happened to go back to back with a busted toe. So yeah, finding that a bit indifferent myself. But from an amateur point of view, it's really important topics, because one part of me says that we don't want to miss games and we want to have a regular team out the whole time. But there comes a balance. Like, at the end of the day, this is a community-based club, and we want to embrace and support family and jobs, and just the way that we go about it as a group. So just the full transparency and understanding puts us in a really good position. So, for example, I don't think Jonny would mind me saying it, that he had a lovely break away with his partner and family, but sometimes that's really refreshing for people, and also the family then has recognition that the club has supported a decision to do that. So he comes back in a better headspace and continues to do what he's done, and that's become the club batting pro, as I call him, and I'm the bowling pro.
Yeah, I suppose. And Johnny will take that. I'm sure he will. But it's interesting because this will take us back to when you were on last time. And I think what is really significant at Lowerhouse now, and I think other clubs are getting there, but it certainly didn't happen certainly not in my day and Gary's, maybe Gavin, Joe's a little bit. You're aware of it now. And you've mentioned Johnny, you mentioned him individually because of what he's doing. But for someone else, it might be different. Someone else might just need to have a weekend off because they're getting grief. It's all about individuals, I guess.
Yeah, and I could take you through the full list. I know all our playing squad inside out as far as relationships go, and we made that very prevalent from the start on the onset. I knew who was potentially going to miss at what times, and can we collaborate them in with someone who's a like for like player, ensure that we don't miss together. And so we've had all those conversations. We plan all those conversations just to try and make life a bit easier for Ben and Dooch. And of course, there's always some unforeseen circumstances that you have to be adaptable and be able to sort of just find a way. But I certainly know within our group and at the core group, from what we show, is that we are wanting to be there. And when you're in an environment where you want to be there, when someone's missing, just as you mentioned before, when you're winning, you want to play. We've created this really good connection there that you all want to play. So if someone there's a legitimate reason. It's not because the dog ate me homework and I've got to sit there and do it all again. There's actually a bit of a theory to it. So it's really good, mate. We're making some really good progress as a group, and like you say, it was a year ago and a year stronger together. And there's a lot of stories in between so far already.
Of course there is, and I guess that it does roll down, and that will go. Obviously, the second team are doing so well. I know they got relegated, but they're bouncing around for it, and you talk to the players around the club. And again, we'll go into the Haslenden game, but say, if we'd have sneaked, just underneath and they'd have beaten us in that game, the players would have been itching to come back. You can see that. Come back and prove a point next week. I do find it interesting, and I don't mean this to be controversial, but when it comes to a stage where you as a group and an individual is struggling, completely out of form, and it doesn't matter, batter, bowler, or whoever, it's always difficult. When I was skipper, when Gary was, when I got dropped, when Dooch or Gav got dropped, and it's a horrible word. How would that go down if we lost a couple and players went in the seconds and the seconds came up? Would this attitude still be in the same place and the mindset?
Yeah, and again, it's like anyone who gets we call the term dropped. If they're not animated about it, then they're probably not at the right place and playing for the right reasons. So we always expect that response. I think what the key is to that is the guidance leading up to those occasions, not just being blindsided and saying, right, see you later. And again, I hold groups. So whether it's myself having conversations, but I know that there's Johnny and obviously Ben is the obvious choice, but we've got this click within the group of these conversations are happening daily, because we had a conversation just at Walsden. I think Johnny might be able to remember this, that what we want to do is we want to make it safe to come and have your chats about your concerns. So if you feel like you are on the brink of, maybe missing, sharing your thoughts and about how you can impact the group more, we have these conversations in lead up to it. So people are in a position where they're understanding of what's happening. And don't get me wrong, Jez, there's definitely been times where we're coming up to the pointy end now and it's the what ifs and what happens here. And we all know that. And again, that just comes back to, the guys having a really, really good understanding of where they stand. So then when these conversations do arise, we're trying to make the best decision possible for the club.
I could talk about this all day long, because I'll bring Gary in about how we used to be. So, for example, player A is struggling for a few weeks. They know themselves. When if you're not bowling right, or you can't knock it off the square, you're starting to have those conversations then around, right, can we do anything about this? Do we just change a bit of style? Do we not necessarily move the batting order around? But you're talking and talking and talking, and then unfortunately it gets to a point where player A, has got to go in the settings and get some form. They're ready for it almost. Dana, I don't know, Gary, the 80s into the 90s, we used to see the team sheet. You used to have to look through the letterbox at club to see the team sheet on the board. And that's how you found out that you were dropped, and everyone were talking behind your back down in dressing room, and that's how you found out. It was true though, wasn't it, Gary? There was some real, you know, and it's not just at Lowerhouse. This happens at every club. Backstabbing because so and so's got more runs than so and so, and he should be in seconds now. And you know, my brother's got more runs, so he's got to come in. It was difficult back then, Gary, weren't it? Sounds quite easy now.
It was, and there was probably some selections made based on friendship and everything else rather than pure cricketing reasons, or and even tougher for selection committees sometimes because you know, somebody obviously needed a run in the twos to get a bit of form of confidence or just get away from the first 11 scenario sort of thing. But you very often were not able to bring in a like for like player. There was no, you know, if you were dropping an opening bowler, a seam bowler or something, there might not have been a seam bowler, you know, you're having to bring a batter in or another wicket keeper or something, just, you know, whoever happened to be the guy in form in that recent couple of weeks. So, and I think selection committees as well in the past probably were a lot more disconnected from the players and the teams and probably just because of the communication side of things now. You know, it's easier, isn't it? You just, you know, you've got a lot of WhatsApp groups or you're seeing people more often. You know, I dare say practice is far more well attended than it was back in our day. And again, there's those opportunities to have that chat and that those conversations were few and far between. So, but yeah, it was hilarious, some of the scenarios that went on, how a team got picked.
Yeah, I mean, it would be funny to get, you know, we've probably talked about it years ago on the podcast, but when we had the second team Woodpile Club, they used to take it in turns at dropping out, and Stan christened it the Woodpile. And, you know, that we would end up, because we weren't a third team, so you didn't even play then.
Well, when all the Rugrats were coming through,
that's right.
It was literally, we needed 2 people in the team who could drive.
Yeah. It was outrageous. I mean, Gav, going back to those days, obviously it's so much better now, the conversation side, and the world has changed. Gary's right. It's not necessarily just about the player's ability or the commitment, but you'll have seen that quite a bit. You know, you were a well-established second team player. Getting the first team was a real achievement for you, and you played a lot of first team games. How do you know, what's your views on how much it's changed since you played?
I think there's just a lot more structure these days, isn't there? You know what I mean? And whether that's what Dan was talking about, you know, communication in the team, or, you know, and trying to get out in front of things, you know, issues before they snowball out of control. It's just the structure. I mean, you know, even not necessarily just selection, but, you know, training and things like that. And I would imagine, right, you know, working on scenarios or certain aspects of your game. Bloody hell, when we used to do, half the time we couldn't be arsed. We used to sit on his bags, didn't we? And you know what I mean? And, you know, who fancies a bat and stuff like that. It just seems a lot more structured these days, which obviously damn sight better players, or there's more better, you know, there's better players around. And obviously we're seeing the benefits of that and the results of that at weekend. But it's just, you know, it's just night and day compared to, you know, back when we played, isn't it, really? The support and the structure there, it's you can't even compare it, really.
Yeah, and I think it's fair to say, you know, this is Lowerhouse podcast. A lot of other clubs, you can see now, whether it's because there's 2 divisions, whether everything's stepping up, the facilities, the ground, you know, the training. There's a lot of other clubs that are looking good, and there's some good competitive cricket. So let's move on to the cricket. Dooch, if I can bring you in, I'd like your, you know, brief summary of the game yesterday before I go on to the players and ask them how it went, because it was slightly confusing. The weather forecast was clearly not right from the day or 2 before, so it did get all a bit up in the air. How did you see it, Dooch?
Yeah, they were obviously expecting rain, weren't they? And that's why I can only presume that's why they completely fucking lost where I'm going here.
They put us in.
They put us in. Yeah, they wouldn't do that normally, would they? Given the fact that we obviously have got such a strong opinion on batting first. I thought, whilst our innings did stutter a little bit, I thought the end result was always a good score on a wicket that was clearly offering a little bit of help. And then obviously the rain at the interval would have only made that sort of a little bit more spicy. And just looked like a really, really strong second half performance from us. Didn't look like we really put a foot wrong. Ben made a very good bowling change early on to get Oki on. And from that point onwards, it was pretty much one-way traffic, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it did, at half time or probably 3/4 through our innings, I'm thinking the pitch still is okay. It's doing a little bit. The outfield's still all right. There's some runs there, whilst they're not as strong as us. And if we get 120, one decent score from the opposition can take the game away from you. Jonny, what was, so there you've been asked to bat. You and Ben have opened again. 48 partnership. How did the pitch play early on, and what sort of pressure did you feel yourself under?
Yeah, I mean, it was obviously very green and very soft. And I'm probably not always the best person to ask when it comes to wickets. To say I've been playing for 20 years, I still don't have a bloody clue. But I knew it was going to do, a little bit. It did stay particularly low and wasn't quite coming onto the bat. But again, what is probably important to point out, it was a traditional Lowerhouse wicket. So I think, when you sort of see them balls full or in your area, you sort of just need to remember to follow through with your shot, and you will get value for runs. And Ben clearly did that from the off. He set off like a train, similar to how he did with Saturday. And, again, put us into a really good position. Personally, I struggled to get going. I think there's a couple of factors there. Probably mainly just the fact it was the third game on the bounce. But I think, we started off as we needed to. And then just unfortunately, I was the first to go pretty early on, and then there was a little bit of a collapse in the middle. I think Dan can probably shed some light as well. He had some air, he had some time out there at the crease and got out sort of on the drive at short cover, which suggests the ball isn't coming onto the bat. So we knew there was going to be challenges, but I think the important thing to remember with the style what we're trying to do as a batting team, and the type of hitting, the style of play we're wanting to do. I think we just need to remember that we give it some welly, regardless of whether the ball is there or not. So I think.
Yeah, and it's no fear, Jonny, in it. You've said before, and it's believing in yourself. That's interesting. You've said that the wicket was you used the word soft, maybe relatively soft. Dan, now, and you've proed for years on club wickets. It seemed to be okay. There was nothing flying around. How did you find the track, after the rain we'd had?
Yeah, it was an interesting one, because the reason of it being so interesting, I think the last time I had a wicket like this was back when I was at Rishton versus Colne away. It was a wicket of two halves. One end was dry, one end was wet. Right. So basically the way it played, it didn't play too dissimilar, but we always knew that the wet end, so hitting towards the park end, was early. We weren't sure what it was going to do, and it did sort of kiss on a little bit because it still had a bit of wet. It was still a bit wet, so the guys could throw their hands through it. But then when Brand come on as their pro slow left armour, it was always going to be a little bit tricky with it getting stuck in the mud a little bit. And then the other end was sort of that dry. It was more holding up from the dry. So yeah, it was interesting, but it's still didn't play
underneath, weren't it? It was dry underneath, but soft on top.
Yeah. So I think from that point of view, we weren't too sure how it was going to go, and it was okay. And where we got to, I think, like we said, it was a number that we thought was enough. But again, I think twice in a year, Jez, you get caught out on the wrong side of it. And this is why I think it was such a brave, powerful performance, and probably one of the best ones I've been involved in, is that we're on the wrong side of it. So once that ball got wet, as soon as the wicket got a bit more drizzle on it, it actually, I believe, didn't favour us. And then, it was absolutely soaking out there. And I can, as a performance from Tom, how he led the group, I couldn't have been more proud of the way he went about it. He went head to head with a pro who has scored the most runs, looks really the real deal. And he just, and that set the tone. So then a Charlie Cottam, from someone you feel like you got to wake him up sometimes. has just come in like a bull to a rag when he sensed that Tom was doing that. And then I think we all fed off that. And then obviously polls everywhere. And then we thought, let's not just participate in this game. Let's go and dominate this game. And you could sense that within the group. So it made every one of us sort of step up and go to another level, even though I believe having the wet ball and it was flying on, we showed a lot of character. And I said that in the rooms after it, that this was truly a performance that might not see greatness because it's conditions overcast and you expect to be, but we definitely got the wrong side of it and couldn't have been happier for the guys.
Yeah, that is, it's a really, like you said, a significant game in the season. It's something that counts. You get your 300s and odds, and Jonny or Ben or yourself get a ton, or someone gets 6 for those games. And for the listeners, what Dan's explaining, being the wrong side of the natural factors, is batting second, even with Duckworth Lewis, the way the pitch is playing now, the way the cricketers are, it is a big advantage batting second. Duckworth Lewis does even it up a bit. So the fact that they decided to bat second, which is brave, like Jonny said, but that's in their favour. The bowling conditions. I noticed, Dan, that Paddy opened, had a great decision, as Duke said, to bring Oki on. I was concerned that you or Paddy would struggle to get on and to get a grip of the ball at all, to let it go. Was that a concern? And you're thinking, I can't even try it?
Yeah, that was a conversation that we had in the halfway point. I think the discussion was around get the ball in Paddy's hands straight away whilst it's new, it's hard, the ball's not wet. And then it was a reflex reaction. As soon as we went off for rain again, it was a bit of a conversation, and again, you can sense with Hawkeye sometimes and what a credit to him, the way he's carried himself this weekend. And just, it gives me tingles because with Hawkeye, if he, I played with him for 1 year, but I played against him for many years. If he senses a moment, you just want the ball in his hand. And that's how it felt. It was on the back of him with Tom. And I'm sure, Jonny felt that as well, that it was, we knew we were in a contest here and I know the opposition didn't want to be a part of that. So, yeah, but that's why the Hawkeye after the rain. And then it got to a point where, Ben just sort of said to me, I think we need to get you in the game, even though, and again, I've played and bowled with a wet ball for 10 years. So it wasn't like I was worried about it, but I wanted to get that ball off the straight. So we made a great decision by nagging the umpire about 350 times to then get a ball change and take a wicket next ball. So I'm sure, Haslingden were really pleased with that. And we got called everything under the sun. So we're proud of that from a Lowerhouse perspective.
Yeah, I did see that going on, and I wondered how I was going to address it on here. It was out of shape, was it?
It was wet. And, it was way out of shape. It was way out of shape.
I think it was massive.
I think it's like at the end of the day, I was talking to one of their batters at the time. It's part of the game. It's part of the game to be able to, like, at the end of the day, I want to dry ball every ball. And I knew, look, it was probably only going to be for a few balls I could have a dry ball, but I felt like if I got that opportunity, something could happen. And fortunate enough that very next ball, but it was due almost to change anyway, because it was swelling up at the quarter seams. It wasn't actual the seam, it was the quarter seams that were swelling and opening. So there was merit within it, because at the end of the day, the umpires made that decision and looked at it and factored it in. So it was definitely getting closer, and we nagged enough. And Ben threw a wet ball back, and I was actually told to finish the over, and I continued to dry the ball. Probably as a typical whinging Aussie, kept drying the ball. And he said, just give me the ball now. I'll just change it now. And sure enough, it was caught and bowled next ball. So brilliant.
Fantastic. And it is part of the game. We've all been, on the other end of it during games, that is the way it goes. I did get the odd feeling. It'd be interesting how Jonny and Dan feel about this. I'm not a negative person, but I did think, even when Brand was out, Griffin's a good player. And the score, I think the total had gone down to maybe 120 or something. And they're still only 60. But in that sort of game, and I'll never forget, and I know it gets boring this, but when Capel pro'd for us, sometimes someone going in and just taking a risk of just for 2 overs, just trying to get 20 on their own, whoever it is, can swing the game around. it doesn't happen much in amateur cricket, but is that something you thought could have happened, or were you really confident, Johnny? Between you as a team, where Tom's bowling, did you think someone might come in and get a quick 20, 25 and drag it back?
I mean, how would you answer this question correctly? You know, the big risk was obviously Brand. You know, he came in, he looks the part. We know what he's capable of based on his stats year to date. He was always the biggie, and Tom was always the bowler that we backed the most in that particular scenario to do something to make a change. And I guess he was the real risk. But let's not take away Fergie. I mean, you know, Matt Griffin, I think he's a great player. You know, there's not many opening batters that come in and can just punch Tom Walker through the covers like he did yesterday on a wicket like that within his first over. So I think that was the partnership that we needed to break, and Tom did that brilliantly. You know, he put up a fight. He got into Brand's ears and got in his face, and he rose to it. He bit, and the ball after his middle stumps cartwheeling. So and I think that put. And I think, you know, to finish off the point, Jed, I think that what that did is it put an enormous amount of pressure on the dressing room, you know, in that dugout, because what was then on the shoulders of those guys coming in was a lot against our ball attacks. It wasn't just Tom; they then had to worry about, you know, taking away the conditions.
Yeah, it is, and it really, you know, it's easier said than done, but it is something I like talking about, and it, you know, when he went in T20s, but still a 50 over cricket, and there used to be they call them the pinch hitters, and we talk between me and Gary, and we'd think, have we got a pinch hitter that we could go in, and we'd send the odd one in, and then they got Chris and the pinch misser, because whoever it was just couldn't get a bat on it at all. Matt, we need Matt to go in at 4, you know, and he'd go in and 12 balls, and he's got 2, and then he's out, and it is, you know, and I agree with you both that, you know, it was always there. The conditions, you know, the natural conditions had favoured them. But then once that rain starts and they're losing wickets, they're going to struggle to come back from that. And great work covering the pitch. Did the pitch get any wetter because of the rain, or did you seem to do a sterling job between you all?
Every time when we managed to come back out for the final sort of chapter, shall I say, they needed quite a bit in 7 overs. I think it was 53.
Yeah, 52.
And there was a couple of full tosses that were thrown down, and they clipped it on the legs down to the bottom boundary. You could just see as the ball rolling down, this water was just following the trail.
Just had a rooster tail out of it, didn't it?
Yeah.
It's funny how, like, when you look at that and the situation, and you mentioned it before, I was fielding at point, and this is how I know. So when I'm fielding at points and it's a wet ball, the wicket's got a little bit wet and it's kissing on, I know it at point I can't move a foot either side. The ball will fly up past me either side. And when that happened and Griff played a couple of beautiful drives off Tom, I knew the 120. I was like, this is going to be tough work. Whereas the general consensus says is the conditions are going to favour us. But once that ball's wet, it's like playing it's like a marble on bloody, you know, on a flat track. So it was then the guys to be able to wrestle that control and be relentless and ruthless as a bowling unit, those two. So then when it was an opportunity for me to follow, it was them under serious pressure. So I was coming in when they were under the cosh. So that's why I think, you know, from my end, it felt like I knew the task at hand, but those boys really set that tone that it was like, I can't come on here and miss, even if I've got a wet ball. So I just think it was one of them, mate, where we were just in a position of, you know, strength, and we weren't going to let it up, because it's pretty rare as well. What I've seen all of my time, I had this with a bit of success at another club, but we had a relentless bowling attack. You get one's out the attack because he's just going to be, you know, we're going to hold him back for 3. Then the next one's coming on, and it's like you as an opposition, you're thinking there's no let up here.
Yeah, and that's why, you know, it doesn't matter what standard of cricket. When people talk about the mental side of cricket, you know, for me, the sport which is so significant when you're on a roll, whether it's 2 or 3 overs or 2 or 3 wins, the mental side is so difficult to get over. and you're right. So I don't think they were ever going to be in it. So great win, lads. You've kept the spot at the top of the league table following that win against Haslingden. Let's move on to the T20.
Jez, just before we do, I think
go on, Gary.
I think it's worth mentioning we were 106 for 8, and for like 9-10 Jack, Joe and the brothers Grimm a few weeks back got 70, 80 odd or whatever it was to get us over the line in a game, and this time they've put 50 on, which in a rain affected game, if they'd have been chasing 120 then down to 80 or something, that's totally in their neck of the woods, isn't it? But that extra 50 runs there at the end, I know we didn't batter us always out, and in the past that's been criminal, but not these days. If you're scoring at sort of 4 or 5s and over, I think that bought us enough time that when that rain came, the score
100%.
It didn't come down to the extent
100%,
it would have.
Gary.
Yep.
Yeah.
You can see both me and John are animated with your comments there, Gary, and I'll dive a little bit deeper into that just quickly before you move on. But that's been a really common theme and a discussion of us driving where we want to get to. So the conversation is always around for us. We are a team. It doesn't matter where and when, we're out to set bigger totals, and we aren't settling for a 150 or 160. The only way we get 160 is if we get bowled out with a dozen overs left. And that's the difference between the Ramsbottom game, where we dwindled our way through. We played safe cricket and it still wasn't enough. And we had a really good, healthy conversation around that. And this is why the belief sits and instilled with a Joe Martin, a Paddy, a Hawkeye, Toxie. You name all those guys through there. We want to give them overs. We don't want to say to the top guys, we soak up the top overs, guys. And then, when we have to go at 8s, you can get 8s, but you've only got 8 overs to do that as well. So we've really set this precedent as a group. And you can only do this when you've got a really strong group. Otherwise, if you're in a poorer team, you have to go and bat your overs, and your top heavy guys have to bat those overs for you. But we sit there and we look at it. Anyone through our top, all the way through down to Joe, if he's batting at 11 for us, if we are ahead of the run rate, and if we have a climbing run rate, those guys can do it however they wish from there on in. So when we get bowled out for 160 and we've got a dozen overs left, we're not slapping ourselves, because the style and brand of cricket we're trying to play is always setting up to have 250s. And if the day doesn't happen and we get bowled out with 12 overs left, we're 160. So that's on the back of just a belief within the group. And I think that's why Johnny was probably nodding his head as well, because we've had many conversations around this, and we're so confident within our walls of each other. If we copping some flack for not batting out overs, we're playing a brand of cricket that we want to win a league.
That and you mentioning that on here, Dan, it's music to my ears, and listeners, will go away, thinking the game has changed, because it used to be criminal. My dad used to go mental if we'd lost 5 overs, and it don't matter that you're only 100 for 3, but you've lost these overs. And you're right, the quality down there, the way Joe Hope was batting. It looked like he was batting on a different track, when he gets in that mindset. And Joe and Paddy, when they can get themselves together, it's probably interesting now. I can throw this in now. We've asked the spectators if anyone knows where Joe Martin is, and someone's just sent a message in. He's looking for the umpire that gave him out. He's trying to find out where he lives. I don't know what happened there.
Can't believe it's the only time he's been animated.
Yeah, it was. I've never seen that before. And so someone's asking, is he going off stalking the umpire? Someone else has sent a message in saying he's at a Portuguese restaurant in Manchester. Portuguese
with the umpire, Jez.
With the umpire, yeah. Getting him to buy debrief. So 100% that you bring that up, Gary. It is so important. And once we got, we were all saying 150, 160, and then whilst the last 3 or 4 batters were looking so comfortable, I'm thinking they're going to squeeze 200 here again. They're going to look comfortable and get to 200, and then they're out of it. And again, also down the mental side of the game, there's nothing worse than a bowling side who are very vocal and they're really up for the game, to get the stuffing knocked out of them in that last 2 or 3 wickets. It's mentally a difficult game then to bring it on. So great performance. Gav, you were there on Friday night. What was the atmosphere like? Plenty there?
Yeah, it was good atmosphere around the ground. I think everyone knew it being Burnley. You know, we hadn't played them on a Friday night down at Lowerhouse for a while, and yeah, there were a lot there. There were plenty in bar, but also there were plenty still out and watching the game. And yeah, it was great just watching Jonny slap him everywhere, to be honest. Everybody were enjoying that. Everyone was getting stuck in it, a bit vocal at times. And then, you know, me and Stanley watched the second innings from the bar with Tony, so I didn't really see too much of the second innings. But the first innings in particular were great to watch. And yeah, really good atmosphere. Plenty of old faces down. And yeah, really good atmosphere. And just a good night.
Brilliant. Yeah, and you know, like I said, I didn't get back till Friday tea time, so I was watching a bit of it on the stream, and it must be great, Jonny, to play. You know, obviously it's a big game because it's Burnley. It's a T20. It's very quick. It's very focused on what is happening there and then. To play in front of the crowd like that, you've done it for a while now, but it must give you a buzz every time. Certainly when it's Burnley. Does that help you with the way you bat?
Don't really think about it.
Tell him yes, Jonny. You've grabbed the badge and you've got it pretty passionate at one point.
Yeah, that weren't the crowd though. That weren't the crowd. I think that's just you know who we are as a team, what we're trying to do as a team, and things fall into place. But it's a good question. I'll be honest with you. I don't think I think about it. I try not to because I think there's sometimes it can catch you out. You know, when you think of games like the World Cup final, you know, even bigger crowds, even bigger occasion. You know, it can be overwhelming. So I try to just sort of put the lid on and zone out a little bit. But it's obviously always nice to be able to raise your bat to that many people and entertain them for a short while. But yeah, it was a great night.
And I think subconsciously, you know, you are a cool character. You've got so much ability, but it's adrenaline sometimes. It's something that you're not even noticing, that you're going out there and you're thinking, this is looking good. First ball comes off the middle. The pitch is playing okay. They're really, I'm not saying they're not up for it. They're very much up for it, but they won a couple of quick wickets in the T20.
Yeah.
Did it feel good right from the start? Did he, you know, because you were looking great on the stream. You weren't great, were you not?
It did feel good right from the start. No, I mean, I got to the game at I think it was like 6 o'clock, 6:05, and we were starting at 15:15. So I literally got into change, got my gear on, come straight back out, and had to face Snowy, who's not the slowest of bowlers. But yeah, there was a few balls just trying to get myself in, weigh up what the wicket was doing because it was doing it. You know, there's a bit of bounce in there, and you sort of had to, I can't really speak on myself really, but I sort of had to agree a plan of how I'm going to play this track and what shots I'm willing to risk because it certainly weren't a wicket where you could play a crisp cover drive, put it that way. But yeah, again, you just got to adapt and come out with a plan, and I think that's all I've been trying to do all year really. Just make sure I've got a plan when I go out there and get some clarity. And yeah, it came off.
Brilliant. So 82 not out, 59 balls. You know, it summed up that 8 fours, 4 sixes. Put you under a bit more pressure now. They used all 8 bowlers. Do you think they had a plan, or was it who's next?
Yeah, I think it was a case of that because they weren't taking. I don't think they got off to the start they wanted to. You know, they wanted more early. They wanted more wickets early on than they got. And I think with Tom Lawson's their T20 captain, and I think you've got to have a plan. You're especially bowling T20 because of the fact that there's only 4 overs in a spell, and he was too busy trying to work out, okay, who am I going to have at the end of those last sort of 5-6 overs of the innings. So I maybe put it down to that. But again, the likes of me and Henry managed to get a decent partnership that sort of put the pressure back on them and had to get them thinking. I think that's another thing that Salp is trying to get us to do. Let's make the opposition, not just Burnley, the opposition change. Let's get them thinking rather than what we're doing. We stay pretty consistent. We do what we do, but let's put pressure on the other side. Yeah, I think that's what's working.
Yeah. Once you've got them down, it's keeping them down, isn't it? Like you've said, and this is again great cricket, which is not. It's not just by good luck. The fact that you and Henry have put 70 on, in probably in no time, and Henry's, I'm not saying only Henry's got 18 of them, but it's almost a run of ball. So that's a plan that get you on strike.
That's important.
Yeah, it is. It really is, because nothing worse than being stuck at the other end and then you get out because you're not getting strike. At any stage, Did you fear that there was a problem of them getting the runs, Johnny, in that second innings? I know they were never up with the rate, but when Hockey was in and then he's got out and Barrett's there, it's a big ask for them.
Yeah, and look, the wicket weren't great, and I think with bowlers like what we've got, you've got to have someone like a Bedders who's going to carry his bat. You've really got to try and replicate sort of an innings that I played, carry the bat through. You're only going to win a game chasing 150 in that sort of scenario through doing that. I don't think you're going to be able to get a quick 30 and do one. You know what I mean? I think it needed that anchoring.
There was only one panic, wasn't there, John? There was only one person who said something to you at one stage. You want to enlighten us for what the score was at that time? Can you remember when it was? I think Paddy Martin might have mentioned to you. The skipper.
Oh my God, Paddy, yeah. Paddy is a skipper, yeah. Yeah, he come up to me and I said,
"Go on, tell everyone. Let's throw him underway."
Yeah, so we had them. This is literally word for word gospel as well. We had them 6 down, and they needed 15 and over. And he said to me, "I'm nervous because Baz had come in and got a couple of 6s and an over." Right, okay.
But
okay,
I think just to go on that too, like again, this is like the funny side, but the serious side is to go now. We're in a team of full composure and control, but obviously Paddy had to take the reins of captain and put himself into that pressure situation. And maybe in years gone by, this is a common feel that people have. And it's like when Paddy and Joe go out there to bat, honestly, I can tell you they could need 70. And I genuinely believe they're going to get it. And they did that day against Woolston. And it's so much easier now watching a game of cricket when I can't impact the game anymore, knowing that where we're at as a group and what we believe. Because in that moment, Johnny just laughed back at him. But in past years, maybe Johnny would have said, "Oh, bloody hell, don't start making me panic. I think we might lose this." And then also when they're out there batting, we're not on edge, biting our nails, walking down. We're actually having stupid chats and just watching a good game of cricket and watching the guys go and succeed, which we're so proud to watch them do. So that's why I thought that was just worth adding there, because the times change now where I can tell you right now, if we need 100 and we're 9 down, I sit there and we think, well, we'll give it a good shot and we're probably a chance of getting this, and then vice versa when we can restrict them.
And I think that's important for the listeners. I think that's important for the listeners, right? Because I understand it's probably not always the easiest of things to be able to watch, especially when, we are struggling. Like, for instance, on the weekend, I think at one point we were, 90 for 6, maybe, something like that. And we're losing wickets in, quick time. And I think the important thing is that us as a team, I'm not sat there worried. None of us are sat there worried, because we've just got that belief that we've managed to, because we've seen it, right? We've proven that we can do it, and it's been a project that's still ongoing over the last 18 months, season and a half, and we don't have concerns over Joe walking into bat at number 11 with needing 30, 40, 50, 60 on the board, because we know that he's more than capable of playing the role of a 1, 2, 3 or 4, and that's the reality of it. So it's not an issue. Yeah, it's not obviously a nice place to be, and we'd love to be 100 for none rather than 90 for 6. But the fact of the matter is, it's not panic mode for us. We're not sat there going, "Shit, we're going to get beat," and that's important. I think that's important to point out.
And there comes a part, doesn't there, Johnny, where we said as a group, you can't fake it. You can't be like, yeah, we'll get these, but then really you're shitting yourself, and you think that when we can't get them, we're no chance. So I've always had these conversations as a group that you'll sense it, and we start to feel it, and we genuinely now believe it. So that doesn't mean that there's going to be days where just because we believe it happens, but we actually sit there and fulfill each other with confidence that this is actually going to happen. So once you get rid of that fake mentality of saying, "Oh yeah, we truly believe it now," that's gone. I'm telling you, that's gone. So whether we do get it or not, or whether we do bowl them out or not, the ultimate belief within this group is purely there. So it's now just about the process for us.
And going back to when you were on last time, Dan, and I know this is a little bit, they talk about the England team and Bazball and everything. I did think when Barrett came out to whack it, and when I said earlier about Haslingden, I never thought we were going to get beat, but it's in my mind, and that's because it's ingrained for years and years. But looking at, Dooch was a great captain. Me, Gary, and Gav played lots and lots of games. And it was doom and gloom. When we were looking like we're going to get beat, it was all doom and gloom. And it was almost the end of the world. You said, Dan, on the podcast previously, if it's a game of cricket, to get, if something happens, if someone plays a fantastic knot and beats you, and you've done everything you can, and you will improve from the mistake, it's only a game of cricket. So I think you've got that attitude as well, haven't you? I don't think you get too high, but also individuals who are going through a bit of rough form might get fed up, but you don't see them as a team. You're comfortable in your own skins, and you want to do what you can do and and perform to the best of your ability. But at the end of the day, you're relaxed about it. That's the way it seems.
He's worked it out, Salps, hasn't he?
Spot on. And I mean, you brought a point there before, Jonny, saying he got out the car at 5 to 6 and went out to open the batting. Jonny will probably tell you that Jonny of a few years back would have been flustered. I can't perform today. This is not right. I think Johnny's in a space of clarity now to go, you know what? Hey, it could be worse. Let's go out and have a hit tonight. Let's go and try my best, do my best things. And everything doesn't have to be structured perfectly. And I mean, I've taken Ben through his OCD, son. I've spun him crazy, where he's had to go to work and park in different car parking spots, or he had to walk a lap a different way. I've put him that far on edge that now, like Ben, when he goes in certain situations, he's truly just embracing what we're talking about, and it's to stupid levels. But Jonny, I know that for a fact that we talk about, oh no, this doesn't bother me, and it was bothering him, to now going, I'm just at peace with a lot of things about how I go about it. Doesn't mean we don't care less. It just means we're truly in a better headspace to be able to perform at a better level.
Yeah, and you have instigated it, but the teammates have got around, and you're 100%. That whether they call it OCD or it's just a pattern or it's a lucky charm. I always put my left pad on, all that bollocks that's gone on before. It's something that it doesn't matter if you do that, but don't let it spoil your evening. Don't let it get you upset so you can't have a pint after you've battered them. I mean, Gav, just come to you. Did you stop after the game? Did the night go on and on?
Well, on Friday?
Yeah.
Might have sampled a few with Tony Woodworth and Matt Stansfield and et al. Yeah, it were the band Electric Neon, I think it were. Yeah, it was a really good atmosphere. The clubhouse were full. And yeah, everyone stayed down. There were plenty outside. There were plenty in. Dance floor were full. Yeah, bar were busy. Yeah, really, really, really good atmosphere. Really good night.
And it's
really
good.
enjoyable.
It's good, Gav, because of it helps when you win. But it would be like that or very similar, if we hadn't have won. And it brings revenue into the club. It gets involved,
absolutely.
Family involved. And I've heard a whisper that the DJ on the night really pushed the night along and really brought it out of
yeah, well, it's funny you should say that. When I was lapping with Matt Stansfield, I couldn't really put my finger on as to, I thought I'm really enjoying this. It just seems a better atmosphere around the ground and things like that, just a little bit more slicker. And then the penny dropped, the DJ, it was the DJ, we finally had a decent DJ, weren't late on playing music, played at the right time, didn't overplay, didn't play his mum's records, things like that. It were, it were good, did a good job.
Yeah, a few people were saying that, they're sick of hearing Joe Bernaducci over every song. And so they were playing some quality songs. Who was it, Duke? Because you did shout out for someone to come and do it. Who did the DJ?
Well, I'll tell you it wasn't, Jez.
Hello.
Weren't that useless lumping?
Whoa!
Hey, language!
Somebody actually said to me, when he refused to do it, somebody came up to me the week after and said, I'm glad he refused, because when he puts his iPhone on in Clubhouse, he's only got 6 songs. So it were actually Matt. Matt did it.
Oh, brilliant. And did he have you heard any whispers, Duke, that he did well?
From himself, yeah. He said he were very happy with his own performance, but self-praise is no praise.
And he said he had a lot of admirers around his DJ booth.
Yeah, I've heard that before, actually. Yeah.
Like going back 30 years. So
I've got a cricket question. I mean, sorry to end this nonsense, but I've got a cricket question.
Go on.
For the two lads. This time last year, we were in like the biggest purple patch of run scoring that I've ever seen. June last year, we had scores of 325, 380, 296, 297, 269. It seemed like every week we were absolutely sort of paggering teams. Do you think that the difference this year is solely down to the weather, or is there anything else that you could sort of put your finger on? Are we perhaps not just firing as a unit, or is it purely all down to the weather?
If you look at the stats in more detail, I think you'll find that actually we've probably battered first far less. So we've chased. I think
this year?
Yeah. So that's my first part of the answer.
Revised targets.
I'm struggling to really think of anything else, to be honest. I won't say there is much that's changed.
Yeah. I'll throw a little bit in there. I think there's unfortunately a little bit of disruption from myself, not being able to play most weeks as well, which has given us deputies, and outside that as well, I think it can cause a little bit of shift within our structure and our setup and how we play. Ben and Jonny do Ben and Jonny. They'll do that every week. That's how they play. That's how they embrace it. Tom's shuffled around a little bit to cater for, say, a pro batting at 5 or going to 4. And yeah, there's been a little bit of movement through there. And I think ultimately as well, the big one is we were rocking up. We were batting first every week. And definitely the conditions that have just evolved over the last month definitely have a shift and change within that. But this is where the two scenarios that I give you, Dooch, is where we're talking about. We were really, really disappointed as a group with our batting performance against a Rams bottom, which ended up the same total as again against the Haslingden. But we set ourselves up for that 250 against Haslingden, and it didn't come across that day. But we're always on rate, whereas we probably had a game there where that's not the way we want to play, even though we ended up with the same number. So we're always in check with that. We're always striving to hit those totals, and I think they are around the corner. But also the competition probably, in matchups at different times as well when we played games has been probably tougher cricket this year, I'd say, Jonny. Like, I feel like it hasn't been really, the let-offs haven't been there, and I don't feel bad to say it, but against the Middleton, obviously the boys have gone out and chased a low total and got it in 10 overs or whatever it is. East Lancs, we've gone out and the boys have got it in a dozen overs, So there's numbers there that were showing we're tracking and progressing on that rate to get the 300s, and that's what we still want to do, and we will do. But I think that's just that's a matter of time in our response.
I actually see it as a real positive because you look where we are in the league, look at our record, and it doesn't feel like we fired, particularly consistently anyway. And I think to me it points to the fact that we're probably a bit more of a rounded side this year, and we've got more ways of winning games of cricket, whereas maybe last year it felt as though if we didn't get a massive score, then we might be up against it a little bit. Whereas this year, it does feel like, we have got maybe more tools at our disposal. That's how it feels to me, anyway.
Yeah, and that's absolutely prevalent. We've said it from the outset when we had this mission. Let's go out there and really feature. We said it that it was going to take a full squad, not even the 11 that are there on the day. The likes of when a Blaise chipped in and come in against Norton, and then the days when Frankie steps up and plays because someone's missing a game.
He's done a bit Annie here and there with the bat.
Yeah. So we're simply just we simply know within our core group that it's so nice. And I sit there on the weekend and I'm absolutely filthy with myself. I've checked one which is just filthy with myself, but geez, it was so nice to see the other guys just getting to work, getting to business, just another day of cricket together, where we're trying to be on the same track to go and win a game, and just the sheer competitiveness that's coming out of everyone, and the pure enjoyment of seeing one of your mates do well. That's so important. And I know Gaz, Jez, I'm sure Dude put you all in it when you played in your time. Was there times where it was like, okay, I've done well today, so I'm looking forward to having a beer. But remember those really good days where your mate's done well and you're having a beer with them, and it gives you a sort of goosebumps because you're so proud of what they've done and what they've won that game for the club and made your night better and probably made your next week better. And we talk about that a lot, that, when it's not your time, really enjoy each other's success, because, it's a long year. There's so many failures in between. So if we can get each other's enjoyment, then we're enjoying each other's success every week rather than just waiting for your own.
I'll tell you what, Dan. We could, certainly if we got Stan on or a few of the other older ones, that is a great paragraph, because you're 100% right. We, and I include myself in that, and I think Gary was that era. Joe and Gav might be different. You're sometimes wishing someone didn't do well because you knew you were going to get dropped because he was a mate of the captain, or you'd had a really shit run. You remember that, Gary? It was almost a competition within the team, and we, looking back, we thought that was healthy, and it's bollocks. It causes more problems than it's ever going to solve. When you listen to Dan saying that, yeah, right, you've had 2 ducks on a Friday and a Saturday, you just enjoy the fact that Ben's got a ton, because on Sunday you might get one. That's an interesting topic, that.
Yeah, every time, Jez. Like I alluded to it earlier about selection and things like that wasn't always 100% merit based. Sometimes it was forced, sometimes it was questionable at best. And I think, just to sort of get back to the previous conversation of comparing with last year, I think, and I've not watched him a lot in the flesh, but I think it's real good that Henry's getting those chances at the top of the order consistently, because that's a long-term thing. That's experience and exposure, and he's not scoring the weighter runs that probably Frankie did through that period you were talking about there, Joe. I don't know. I haven't looked at the stats. I might be wrong. But as a team, we're still performing. We're still winning in various fashions, like you said. And yeah, we were able to do that, not win it at all costs, but still have that eye on how do we bring those younger players through and learn that success, learn how to play, learn off the experienced players. So batting and bowling, Gansler, he's bowled sometimes, not bowled sometimes. He's come on and taken a couple of key wickets, and that's as good as a 5 for a 7 and winning 12 points. Where you just getting that pro out of that key amateur. So I think all round, whilst it might not be as exciting if people just go on to see sixes flying out of the ground and we score 350 plus, I think all round we're better for this type of period where everybody's contributing consistently, and obviously the clarity around the messaging around the team sounds to be unequivocal. Nobody can be in 2 minds what the mission is and what their roles are by the sound of it. So everything's lined up for these players to just go and do what they're capable of doing.
Yeah, and Adam's just sent me a message there about it was great watching the runs last year, and some fantastic just batting sides out the game. This year's been a lot more entertaining as a spectator, whether you're independent or whether you to watch Tom Walker bowl some of them bombs and be really in whether we bowl first or bowl second. It's exciting. You're not edge of your seat. You're not. Even Gav came out at bar to watch a few overs, and Hawkey, the way Hawkey's bowling this year, and you get Toxey's fantastic and does what he does. We know what Dan can do, but with Paddy's, the way that they've got that teamwork going with Paddy tying an end up early on and they can't score, and Tom bowling like he does. It's really entertaining cricket. But I love the stats, Dooch. I do think it's something that's another reason why cricket's such a great sport. Saturday, Walsden away, quarter-final of the Cup. We won the toss and decided to field. Was that, Dan, were you over there?
Yeah.
Yeah, was that just down to the conditions?
Yeah, so, sorry. Yeah, so we basically made a decision there that with the conditions around, the tie fell favourably for us. They did have a couple of important outs. So with the weather around, we wanted to try and make some really early inroads, obviously with Tom firing in, Hawkey doing what Hawkey's doing. So we really made a key objective to try and make inroads, get a game done. We had a pretty ruthless mentality that day that we're here to just get in there and get a job done as fierce as it has to be. And that's ultimately how it went out from the outset, from the bowling, the way that started, to then how we finished the innings off from a bowling group, to then how Jonny and Ben just went out and said, here's a statement. So that's as clear, as simple as the project was.
Yeah, and I know they had a slightly weakened side, but in the cup with the weather knocking about, you don't want to be hanging around at 6 o'clock and you've still got to try and get 20 overs in, and then if you don't, you're going back. I know there's new rules now for the reduced for the run rate, but that is a professional performance. This is the weather. We can't do anything about the weather, so we're going to change the game by absolutely attacking them from the start. So a fantastic performance. 3 wickets for Oki and Tom, and 3 for yourself, Dan. 3 in 5 balls.
Yeah, I had a big return that day. It was a big spell. I was quite happy to obviously that's just on the back of the good work that the boys just did, and as soon as we got Joe Gale there, and that pretty much said that how quick can we wrap this up and get off and let our big boys at the top go and do what they've been doing all the time.
Do what they're doing. You got 14, Johnny. You feeling good out there with Ben? Ben, again, I was away, so I didn't see. Apparently, looked in good nick.
Yeah. He just took it to him. To be honest, Joe Gale in particular. I didn't really need to do much else. To be honest with you, I just tried to keep the scoreboard ticking over. He was taking it into his own hands, taking matters into his own hands, really. And I just unfortunately got a bit of a top edge against the pro. Yeah, and that was bye-bye to me. But Ben was over double what I were on by the time I got out. So it was his show on Saturday. We were conscious of the rain and all that duck fluid nonsense. So again, it was just a case of let's go out and get this over with. The message from Ben was get this over with as soon as possible.
Yeah, exactly.
25 minutes later off.
Yeah, just get into the hat for the draw for the semi. I'm going to talk about the draw and how that's panned out from Sunday. I've got a few stats down here around the seconds. Dooch, have you anything in front of you just to talk about the seconds after we've talked about the Worsley Cup draw? Go on, Gav.
Jez, I actually went down on Saturday and watched them for a bit. So I'd just like to talk about the twos for a little bit.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. On Saturday, Joe will be able to sort of fill in, selection wise. But when I got down there on Saturday for a couple of hours, I was, walking around lapping. It looked as though we had a few out. Obviously Bithel's out injured. Shawcat wasn't playing. Who else? Keegan didn't play. They looked a more experienced side, let's say. And I was led, then I was informed that, they're second in Div 1. They struggled, did the second 11. But the brilliant thing was, and this is why I wanted to really sort of mention it, we've all played in games, especially when we're young lads. I know we're on a really good run at the moment in the league. But obviously, they took the medicine last year and they went down. They've been playing good cricket this season. But they're playing in a quarter-final, which is a big game against a good side from the division above. And they were batting first, and it wasn't going to plan. But the brilliant thing was, obviously, the opening bowler, Bithell out, Shawcat who takes wickets at that level, he takes wickets in first team, and Keegan who turns his arm over. The atmosphere and the noise that was generated from them young lads, it was brilliant, and they deserve a lot of credit. Now, you can look at the scorecard, and obviously 2-2-4 plays 89, and that's a thumping. But I think, you've got to look at the context in that game. You had lads like, great lads, Robbo coming, throwing himself around field, on boundary. Yanis, exactly the same. They didn't go quiet. They didn't hide, not one of them. When they got a wicket, walking around thinking, and everyone was saying, we need a wicket. They got one. Everyone's in, right, come on. The attitude was absolutely spot on. So I didn't see us bat, but obviously I've seen the scorecard and we fell well short. But I just wanted to pay them the compliment, really, that their attitude was spot on. When it's not easy and it's not going for you, it's easy to hide. And not one of them did, especially when you've got young lads in that team. I know Simmy's not particularly young, Dan Sim, but, Simmy comes on at a difficult time, bowling from the park end, and shoulders back, let's have you. That's what you want. That's the attitude you want. Young Jax Edwards, young lad against probably, the best side he's bowled against. Sure, he had a bit about him, a bit of bollocks about him. Again, really good signs, and it was a tough day for him, but fair play to them. They stuck at it. And then they go out on Sunday, and absolutely wall a piece lengths. I know they got 270, they got 270 odd, well 90 odd, and deck 56. So yeah, I just wanted to, you know, just talk about him a little bit and give him the props because whilst it was a bit of a thumping, there were positives to take, and I hope that they realised that after the game, and I hope they spoke about that.
Yeah, I'm sure they will. I was just going to bring up the fact that they've bounced back so well. I know it's a different standard of side, but everything's positive with the seconds. They're feeding from the firsts. They have got some good young players there, and as alluded to earlier, Will 92 off 80 balls, a 56. Some big partnerships in that 272. So, good lads. Keep it going. They've. Do you know anything about Jack Sims' run out? Was that, was it because he's too slow?
I didn't see us bat, unfortunately. I only saw us in the field. But that's probably a good story with truth. Yeah, it was really slow.
Yeah, it was definitely because of it. Thanks, Gav. No, I appreciate that. It's good to hear around the second team and keep them going. They are young kids. Let's hope they get, they do get the promotion they deserve. They're way out in front now, aren't they, in the league? Are they to like 17, 12 points in front of second? No, 22 points in front of second and won 9 out of 9 league games. So big shout out to the twos. We were trying to get a couple on tonight at the last minute, but thankfully Dan and Jonny came to the rescue. So let's move on to the Worsley Cup semi-final draw. It's all over the website, so we'll know. So Lowerhouse have been drawn against Burnley at home, and Rammy and Greenmount have been drawn against each other. And you've been in the league a long time, Dan. You know the standards. There's no easy ties, but I'm guessing we would have liked to avoid Burnley in the semi. I know we've thumped them 3 times this year, but what's your thoughts on that? Is that my old negative attitude?
That's your old negative attitude right there. No, I know that we had this conversation within the group, and none more passionate than probably Hawkeye on this one. This is who I want. This is where I want them. I want them in this game. I want them at our place. So, everyone says, a Burnley Lowerhouse final at Lowerhouse is obviously the number one. But I think just from the feel and the guys, I think, one, it's another game of cricket against a good opposition that's really handed it to our boys over the years. So I know that we're thriving and driving to have any opportunity because it's a big game. And the boys that have been there a long time, I know how much it means to them. But for us as a group, we just want the biggest games as soon as possible. So if we do go well in that one and we can get one more, then the next one's just as big. So it's a true level of belief within the group of who we want when we want. So I think we're just excited more than anything. And it's a game of cricket. We've had it over them, but I can absolutely assure you and promise you that it's not going to be any complacency. It's going to be absolute job at hand, task at hand, to do everything we can to get our club into another final.
Yeah, and it's 100%. That is the attitude, which is so welcoming to see, and that's why we're getting so many people watching. Certainly Lowerhouse, but other clubs around the league. It is a top league now with the way that the games are played, and there are no dummies. Greenmount are in the second division. They're at the top. Rammy are doing okay. They've got some great players there in the first division. Burnley are second from bottom. So moving that on, it'll be a good weekend. Let's hope the weather's good and we can get quite a few down there to enjoy it. Before I'm going to go right, I have nothing else to talk about regarding the cricket, so have a little think yourselves as to what you want to, if there's anything else you want to bring up. I've dropped a monumental bollock this evening. When we weren't sure about having this podcast tonight, we were moving it around a little bit because Joe Martin's not available. So between myself and Joe Martin, we decided to ask Paul Stanley to come on. So Paul Stanley, he's such a character, he's daft as a brush. And he said, I'm not so sure. I'm not. Clearly, Sharon didn't want him to go on it at home. She wanted to watch whatever. So he said, I'll go down the club and I'll go in the West End room with Joe Martin and I'll record with him if I can get out the house. Turns out Joe Martin, I didn't know then, wasn't available. So thankfully, he got you two guys on, and we're running it without him. But I forgot to tell Stanley that we didn't need him.
Could I just add to that the real reason behind why he's not on here is because I've had to play assistant manager for about a month now, and I've become his full-time carer. So he's losing the plot. No word of a lie. He's on the middle of Woolston on his hands and knees looking in his bag for his glasses. He's pulled it out at Penrith. He's got one lens. Someone said have a drink after the game and fill your boot. So he started pouring his drink in his boot. So he's absolutely lost the plot. But I think that's more to it.
This is not going to help then for this weekend, Dan, because he sent a message. Where are you? You tosspot. I've nipped down the club about 20 minutes ago. Joan wasn't there. I was going to save your ratings because they're going through the floor. You know what it's like when they used to bring Dirty Den back into EastEnders. He's now had to walk home, so he'll properly be soaking. You might have to get his Zimmer frame out for.
Tell me about it.
What a character! What a character he is. So I'll go around. Gav, I'll come to you first, and then I'll come to Dooch and Gaz. See if you've got anything to add. Then we'll finish off with a guest before we finish.
No, nothing else to add from me, Jez. Just been a really good episode and good insight from Jonny and Dan. Really enjoyable.
Definitely. And it is, we sometimes miss this. I don't want to keep getting the same people on or, to go through it. But it's amazing how many of our proper fans who've been there for years. Oh, I never knew that happened. That was so good listening about that. So, I really appreciate you two coming on. So that's fantastic. Dooch, anything from you?
Big games keep coming, don't they? Clitheroe this weekend for the first team. Another big game. I think they're just second, are they, in the league?
Yeah, is that away? That's away, isn't it?
Away, on Sunday.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the big games keep coming. Good to watch.
Yeah, tough side over there. So, so good luck with that. Gary, anything from yourself before we move on?
Nothing more for me. Thanks, Jez.
Brilliant. Thanks very much. Jonny, really appreciate you coming on. You're always good company. It's good to have a good crack with you. Anything you want to add about cricket or about anything else in life?
No, at this stage. I'll leave you in peace.
Just like Joe Martin. Dan, really enjoy listening to you. You've got a really good outlook on, not just on cricket, but the way your mannerisms and the way you play the game and the way you chat to people. You're such a likeable, welcoming chap. Your family sit there and watch the kids run around. It's fantastic. So thanks ever so much for coming on. Is there anything you want to add before we finish the episode?
Yeah, no, I just want to say that I appreciate everything the club's doing for us. And you mentioned my family, and we're having an absolute blast down at Lowerhouse. And I know you're all looking for a bit of a punchline, and mine is if you're looking for something, Dan's lovesick, because the way that this group has embraced everything we're trying to do, the genuine care we have for each other. We're all in love, and it's a really nice feeling. So I think we need to keep that going. But we've got each other's back, and who would have thought that blokes are saying it about another blokes that we're lovesick? So we're just thriving with each other and looking forward to the weekends. So that's
brilliant. Brilliant. It was a different type of love stick when Manage used to play, though. That was different then when Stanley were involved. So really enjoyed that episode, lads. Thanks very much. We've gone on nearly an hour and a half, but I'm sure a lot of the people will enjoy listening. So thanks very much. Please support our sponsors. Come down to the games and I'm sure there'll be some big arrangements for the Burnley games. Get yourself down, sponsor a tent or whatever else, and enjoy the cricket. So thanks everyone for listening.
Wonderful. Thanks, guys.
Cheers, guys. Good evening.
Yes, thank you.
Cheers. Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Jonny.
Bye-bye.